Hello, everyone. There's been a lot of talk in the media about defunding the police, and I want to take a few minutes to discuss Lear's position on police funding, mission of police, and ultimately objectives of policing. Police funding, the challenge with police funding is that some districts or cities or municipalities rely on police revenue in order to meet city municipality budget shortfalls, or in some instances, police are revenue collectors. And the problem with the police being revenue collectors as opposed to protecting and serving only is that there becomes a mandate on the police to justify their budgets. So for an example, the Department of Justice did an investigation of the Ferguson Police Department. It was discovered that over 20% of the city's budget was generated from policing. So what does that mean? That means that the police, when they pull you over, they can't give you a warning. They have to give you a ticket. They can't say have a good day, slow down, because there's quotas. The report detailed how city leaders were pressuring the police chiefs. And as we all know, when your pressure comes from up high, it gets pushed down low to the officer level. So in these instances, the city cannot defund the police because the issue becomes a matter of budgeting and revenue for the city, whether it be court costs or court fees or parking or enforcement. So what we see is in cities where police are revenue collectors, the relationship with the police tends to be more adversarial, primarily in areas where when you go after people who don't have political representation, when you go after people who can't afford a lawyer, they're least likely to be able to call the mayor to get redress of a grievance. So you go after people who can't fight for themselves, and that's a problem in policing. And we need to end for-profit policing. As far as budget revenues and shortfalls, that should not be the job of the police, because once again, it tends to disproportionately affect areas that have a high density of African Americans, and in other areas of the country where you see these budgets need to be justified. Now, going into the issue of, after we talked about the revenue, we also need to talk about the mission. Most people would not have an issue with police funding or even the police if we did not expect the police to do so much. If you ask any leaders in policing, they'll tell you, if you want to cut my budget, no, you ultimately need to cut my mission. You need to cut the expectations that you have for this department. And that expectation, as we see, will not be cut. It's the challenge because the idea is if the budget is cut, people are less safe. In Phoenix, Arizona, a police officer just threatened to kill the mayor of the city if the budget was cut. Could you imagine this happening in any other profession? Could you imagine a teacher saying, well, I'm going to shoot up the school if the budget is cut for the school district? We understand that this is a part of the reality. It's who will police the police. So when we talk about this issue of budgeting, we ultimately have to talk about what is the role of police in society. Now, it is important to focus on the role of the police as opposed to the money that the police get. Because ultimately, when you focus on the police and not on the money and what they're budgeted to do, then there is the conversation that needs to be had, which is the conversation that needs to be had at the local level. The local level should determine their budget. It's interesting how people who don't live in one area are concerned about how the police are funded, because they know they live in an area where the police aren't going to be defunded because there's no issue there. That is disingenuous, and that's what needs to stop. Thank you for your time.